So today, of course, we're talking about dyslexia. And the question is, if my child has difficulty reading, does that mean that he or she has dyslexia? Well, dyslexia is but one of several internal reasons for why a student might not be learning how to read. Not all students with reading difficulties or those identified with specific learning disabilities would be considered to have dyslexia. So as an example is a student has reading comprehension problems. The mechanical side of reading is fine, but difficulty persists in deriving meaning from print. So there are lots of different reasons. A student may not been or learned the way to comprehend. Teachers in their reading classes teach you different comprehension skills. And so learning how to not just read, but be able to understand what you read is a component of, being a good reader. So it says, if my child has dyslexia, does that mean that he or she needs special education? Well, special education is not the only answer to the challenge of dyslexia. It is an answer for a select group of students with more severe manifestations. It is important to understand the student's specific problem area and design an intervention around that area. There is no one-size-fits-all treatment for dyslexia. There are many intervention programs available that address specific areas of dyslexia. And Ms. Sierra, if you want to speak on that.
Sure. So there are two paths that a student with dyslexia can participate in once identified. They can participate through a 504, the dyslexia program, and that would be our standardized program, or you can participate in a specialized program with special education. So both are very similar interventions. They are daily interventions, but those are the two paths that we can go through.
And correct. Mm-hmm. Thank you. And that's kind of like what I do. I do the standard protocol dyslexia. That's 504. And then Ms. Beth Sierra, she does the specialized for special education side. So the side that I'm on, the component, it goes really fast, goes much faster than the kind that she does, a lot slower, a more targeted area. Okay. So we have dyslexia. We need to know what that definition is. What is the definition of dyslexia? It is a specific learning disability that is neurobiological in origin, and it is characterized by difficulties with accurate and fluent word recognition and by poor spelling and decoding abilities. These difficulties typically result from a deficit in phonological components of language that is often unexpected in relation to other cognitive abilities and the provision of effective classroom instruction. Secondary consequences may include problems in reading comprehension and reduced reading experience that can impede growth of vocabulary and background knowledge. So you notice it said unexpected, something that is unexpected in relation to other cognitive abilities. So you have a student who's doing really, really well in class, and you see that they're very bright and can answer lots of things, especially when it's oral. HMH is a program that we have for reading, and it can read the books to them. And so they're able to give you answers to questions, but then when you get ready to give them their assignment to, do it individually, independently, they're not really able to do it because they may be struggling. But then there are other things that are unexpected. It could be there are lots of absences from school, things that are causing them to struggle. So it's not necessarily one thing. So we're going to look at a video with information on dyslexia. This is just a small, short video that we're going to watch. So let me make sure that it's okay. Hold on. I'm going to share it.
Take a moment to read the following. How was that? Frustrating? Slow? What were those sentences about? They're actually a simulation of the experience of dyslexia, designed to make you decode each word. Those with dyslexia experience that laborious pace every time they read. When most people think of dyslexia, they think of seeing letters and words backwards, like seeing B as D and vice versa. Or they might think people with dyslexia see saw as what.
Can you guys hear that?
Yes.
Okay.
Take a moment to read the following. How was that? Frustrating? Slow? What were those sentences about? They're actually a simulation of the experience of dyslexia, designed to make you decode each word. Those with dyslexia experience that laborious pace every time they read. When most people think of dyslexia, they think of seeing letters and words backwards, like seeing B as D and vice versa. Or they might think people with
Some
dyslexia
people cannot see the
saw
video.
as
Can
was.
you like
The
stop
truth
it
is,
and then
people
you
with
share it
dyslexia
again?
see things the same way as everyone else.
I'm sorry, you said some people can't see the video?
Yes. Can you like stop sharing and then start again?
Oh, okay, sure.
If it's only one person, Ferial, it may be just that person.
There, yeah.
They may need to
That
reach
person?
if it's only
Okay.
one person.
Okay.
So is it just one person or you want me to keep going?
Okay. Can you guys hear the video?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Dyslexia is caused by a phonological processing problem, meaning people affected by it have trouble not with seeing language, but with manipulating it. For example, if you heard the word cat and then someone asked you, remove the C, what word would you have left? At. This can be difficult for those with dyslexia. Given a word in isolation like fantastic, students with dyslexia need to break the word into parts to read it. Fan-tas-tic. Time spent decoding makes it hard to keep up with peers and gain sufficient comprehension. Spelling words phonetically like S-T-I-K for stick and F-R-E-N-S for friends is also common. These difficulties are more widespread and varied than commonly imagined. Dyslexia affects up to 1 in 5 people. It occurs on a continuum. One person might have mild dyslexia, while the next person has a profound case of it. Dyslexia also runs in families. It's common to see one family member who has trouble spelling, while another family member has severe difficulty decoding even one-syllable words like catch. The continuum and distribution of dyslexia suggest a broader principle to bear in mind as we look at how the brains of those with dyslexia process language. Neurodiversity is the idea that because all our brains show differences in structure and function, we shouldn't be so quick to label every deviation from the norm as a pathological disorder, or dismiss people living with these variations as defective. People with neurobiological variations like dyslexia, including such creative and inventive individuals as Picasso, Muhammad Ali, Whoopi Goldberg, Steven Spielberg, and Cher, clearly have every capacity to be brilliant and successful in life. So here's the special way the brains of those with dyslexia work. The brain is divided into 2 hemispheres. The left hemisphere is generally in charge of language and ultimately reading, while the right typically handles spatial activities. fMRI studies have found that the brains of those with dyslexia rely more on the right hemisphere and frontal lobe than the brains of those without it. This means when they read a word, it takes a longer trip through their brain and can get delayed in the frontal lobe. Because of this neurobiological glitch, they read with more difficulty. But those with dyslexia can physically change their brain and improve their reading. With an intensive multisensory intervention that breaks the language down and teaches the reader to decode based on syllable types and spelling rules, the brains of those with dyslexia begin using the left hemisphere more efficiently while reading, and their reading improves. The intervention works because it locates dyslexia appropriately. as a functional variation in the brain, which naturally shows all sorts of variations from one person to another. Neurodiversity emphasizes this spectrum of brain function in all humans and suggests that to better understand the perspectives of those around us, we should try to not only see the world through their eyes, but understand it through their brains.
Thank you guys for that, watching that. Let me put it back in the slideshow mode and we'll continue on with the PowerPoint. Okay. So here we talk about strengths and weaknesses experienced by many students with dyslexia. As we saw in the video, you have lots of different people that are well known who has had dyslexia, who have dyslexia and has been able to, go through life very successful with it. And there's different spectrums of it. There's the mild to the very severe. Some of the strengths of people with dyslexia, though, are creative thinkers. They think outside the box, naming, artistically talented, intuitive. They know an answer, but maybe unable to explain how. Some of the weaknesses is the phonemic awareness and word retrieval, or rapid difficulties with sequencing and visual perception, confusion. Those are some of the weak things, some of the characteristics that they might have. So like the video showed, these are some people that you might know that have dyslexia and have been very successful. Dyslexia does not mean low intelligence. People with dyslexia include people like Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Muhammad Ali, Richard Branson, Patrick Dempsey, Jamie Oliver, and you have Jennifer Aniston and Whoopi Goldberg as well. So some of the facts about dyslexia, it can be inherited. Children have a 50% chance of having dyslexia if one parent has it. People with dyslexia are usually more creative and have a higher level of intelligence. It affects 1 in 5 individuals all across socioeconomic groups. It exists on a spectrum from mild to severe, and dyslexia do not see words backwards. So these are some of the myths about dyslexia. Reading and writing letters backwards is the main sign of dyslexia. We hear that quite often. People say, oh, my child is writing this word backwards. They're transposing the letters and mixing the letters up. That is not a main sign of dyslexia. Dyslexia goes away once kids learn to read. Dyslexia only affects boys. Dyslexics are not smart. It can be cured. Dyslexia is a vision problem, and students with dyslexia are lazier than most students. So all of these are myths, meaning they are not true. There are very bright students with dyslexia, and it doesn't just affect boys. We have lots of different students, genders that, and then socioeconomics, when it talked about that, people come from all different backgrounds that have dyslexia. So readers with dyslexia overuse the left frontal and right frontal regions of their brain, but this brain profile can normalize to some extent after intervention, meaning that appropriate intervention actually helps a dyslexic reader brain to function more like a proficient reader's brain. So as the video stated, with proper intervention, and the student can learn to start reading at a same level as their peers, closer to, and make a lot of improvement because they're spending a lot of time at first with being very laborious with their decoding, and they're struggling through it. But with the intervention, it helps them to decode better, and some of the phonological awareness things that they need will come into play. So the following are the primary reading and spelling characteristics of dyslexia: difficulty reading words in isolation, difficulty accurately decoding unfamiliar words, difficulty with oral reading, slow, inaccurate, or labored without prosody, and difficulty spelling. It is important to note that individuals demonstrate differences in degree of impairment and may not exhibit all the characteristics listed above. Student doesn't have to have all of these characteristics to be considered dyslexic, or they could just maybe have one or two of these characteristics and could very well have it. They could have a very mild form of it. And so it's just basically doing things to figure out what it is that they're struggling with. So because of the kinesthetic and verbal nature of the lessons, intervention is conducted in a pull-out group that includes targeted intervention, which we use reading by design lessons, and they are consistent, systematic, multisensory instruction, which the student gets 120 minutes per week. So a lot of the stuff in the reading by design is repetitive, is lots of repetition, and this helps the brain to start to understand and be able to help students with their decoding and spelling. So students with dyslexia also are allowed accommodations. So we have examples of Dyslexia 504 academic and testing accommodations. So they could get things like extended time for testing, text to speech. Text to speech is something that we have where the student has to read the story for themselves, but the question and answer choices can be read to the student. And then we have language and content support, spelling assistance, preferential seating, peer assistance, clarifying of assignment instructions, chunking of assignments, reteach difficult content. These are some of the accommodations that a student can get. We also have where a student doesn't have to be required to read out loud if they're really struggling with it. We don't want to embarrass a student, of course, in front of their peers. So that can also be an accommodation. So here we have dyslexia. These are just some takeaway points. It is a specific learning disability. It affects accurate and affluent word recognition and decoding that is the result of a problem with phonological and or orthographic processing. The reading involves the coordinated use of multiple skills, including decoding, fluency, and comprehension. And not all students with reading difficulties or those identified with a specific learning disability will be considered to have dyslexia. And not all those with dyslexia will require special education services. There is no one-size-fits-all treatment for dyslexia, although there are many effective instructional interventions and strategies to help struggling readers become more proficient readers. So once again, just working with the student, there's a lot of other reasons why a student might be having difficulty reading. It has to be something that is unexpected with cognitive abilities. Because once again, if a student misses a lot of days of school, which that's why it's very important that students are in class every day on time, because if they're missing a lot of school, that is another reason students might be struggling. And if they're not reading at home, because of course they're reading in class with their reading teacher, but they have to be reading at home as well. So you want to make sure that they're getting a library card, going to the library, getting books, can go to half price books, get little books and things like that, just to help them read at home, because it's important for a student to read at home as well. And so here we have the TEA Dyslexia Handbook. If you want to use the QR code for that, and that will get you to the TEA Dyslexia Handbook as well as the audiobook resources. You can use the QR code. So I'm going to keep it on this screen for a few moments. So if you want to use your QR code to do both of these, you are more than welcome. Audiobooks is a really good resource. Students with dyslexia do really well when they hear things orally, because of course, when it's on print, that's when they're struggling, but give them these audiobooks so they can still be able to listen to someone reading the book to them. Even if you're busy and don't have time to do that at that moment, they can still go on there and get some reading in. So I'm going to assume everyone has gotten these two QR codes. Is there anyone who still need to use it and scan it? Is everybody okay? Okay. And so dyslexia. A-Leaf Special Services Department is where I work for. We have many paths, but there's only one destination, and that's for kids to be successful and their reading and to improve. So we're going to open it up for any questions anyone might have.
I have a question.
Okay.
Are you able to hear me? Okay. I have a first grader, and he is struggling like really hard with like the reading part and the words. Like if I say the words and ask him to point to it, like he knows those words. Like I'll say the word and I'll tell him point, he knows. But when it comes to like reading, he's having difficulties reading. Like even if I say like what's the sound, instead of just saying the word, say the sound to each letter. And so I'm right now I'm in the point of trying to get him tested for dyslexia. I already started that with the Heflin school system. I already did that. But I want to know what I can do more at home, because it's like we struggle. Like I'm talking about where there's tears on both ends sometimes, and so like it's a big struggle for us. And you know, I try to take it time by time, like sitting there. He gets impatient, I get impatient, and so it's like I don't know what else to do.
Right. And so first we want to make sure that we try to, you know, give them as much praise as possible. You won't want them, definitely don't want them in tears, you know, that's going to just shut them down altogether. And we want to keep the students motivated and wanting to learn and read. And so you say that he's not able. So do you think it's dyslexia, or do you think it's a speech issue? Is he not able to speak? Is that what it is?
No. Yes, ma'am. No, I believe that it's dyslexia. I have dyslexia. I still have dyslexia, but I had it more of like growing up. I still come to some words where I'm like, you know, messed up with it, but I believe that it's dyslexia, and I think that's why I'm pushing so hard for him to get tested for it, because like there is a struggle and I could see it. And of course, like his letters, you know, how you mentioned the letters being backwards. Sometimes, you know, when he writes, like it's just it's backwards. And so I noticed that, but I think now, because we have a lot of reading and a lot of homework that we need to do now that he's in first grade, it's really become a bigger issue.
Ms. Sierra, you can go ahead with that.
I would, my recommendation would be that you're on the right path to get him tested, especially with the genetic disorder. I mean, with the genetic history there, but it's, you know, supporting homework at home. My recommendation would be to read for him, you know, read with him, guided reading, until you have a better understanding. And once you have a better understanding of the testing results
all the way,
you would, you know, then you can talk about accommodations. And part of that accommodations that you might want to talk about is shortening assignments and extending time, because it will take a dyslexic student longer to respond, both in writing and in reading. So you can support that by scribing for him for now. I mean, you can talk to your teacher about if that would be okay. Say, listen, we're struggling too much. He's doing the work. Is it okay if we, you know, if I support some of the written responses, or if I support with the reading, you know, and my recommendation would be to work with your teachers until you get the results back.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another thing too is because dyslexia is because a deficiency in phonological awareness. A lot of the things for the first grader to do is you can do things like segmenting sounds and having the student blend words together. You need to ask about how many words is in this sentence. All of that is phonological components. So, you know, rhyming words, students at that age, and a lot of students who are dyslexic have a hard time with words that rhyme. They can't, you say two words, clock and rock, they don't hear that as a rhyming word, and they're always looking for something like bat and rats. They're going to look for something. If you say what rhymes with rats, they're going to try to find another word that has the R sound, but it doesn't, that starts with an R, but it doesn't necessarily rhyme. So rhyming words, onset and rhyme, segmenting, blending. We say things like k, how many sounds do that word have, and what word am I saying? And they should be able to say clock. So they do a lot of that in first grade, in kinder as well. So when they're struggling, they usually struggle really hard in those areas when they are when they are dyslexic. And we also, what I did not say is that we do test in ALE-FISD. We test first graders every January, and we test them to see, we have the program that we use to help us, it's called Amplify, to see, it brings out the red flags of the characteristics of dyslexia. So it'll have on there, well, you know, look at this student, this one, this one, this one. And then we have a committee that comes together. We look at all of the data and we determine if the student needs to move on to be tested. And so then in May, we do all of our kindergartners with Amplify, and it also shows us, it automatically say, well, look at this student, this one, this one. It'll tell us students that we might need to look out for. And then our committee gets together, which are content specialists, the DIAC special education department, myself, and we all look at everything and decide if this particular student need to go on. There's a lot of things that we look at to determine, well, what is the reason why this student might not have done so well on Amplify. You know, we also get with their classroom teacher. Classroom teacher might say, oh, well, they're hardly ever at school. So of course we wouldn't move them on to get them tested with dyslexia if they're, first we want to make sure that they're in class and things like that. So just so you know, first and kindergartners are going to be tested.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. He was, and that's where I received the letter the first time in kindergarten, and then first grade, instead of waiting to have him tested, that's why I started pushing. Just recently, a couple weeks ago, we just really kind of started it, getting the paperwork and that in so that we could get them tested, and also for special education.
Good job. Well, thank you for, you know, you're already on the right path. You know, if you feel like it's something more, then they definitely will do that. Is there,
I think
Miss
Miss
Washington?
Washington has, she's been patiently waiting. Thank you for your patience.
Hi, so I have a daughter. She's in 9th grade in Hastings 9th grade center. She's a little behind, like in grade level, due to well, she's new to this district. We come from ISD. We had her tested when she was like in 1st grade. So they will have her, some schools that she would go to in HISD will have her in taking like dyslexia classes with some of the teachers, but we kind of figured out that she would have a lot of bad behavior problem due to dyslexia, because she didn't want to read in front of the students, or she felt like they were laughing at her. So she would act out a lot. She's kind of improved a lot, but only problem I have with her is now that she don't like to read, because she don't like, if I text her, she's not gonna text me back, she's gonna send a voice message back to me. Or if I ask her to read something, she be like, mama, like she don't want to interact with me when I'm trying to help her, because I also, like I told her, I said, Kayla, you're not the only one that have dyslexia. A lot of people had dyslexia. I had dyslexia when I was younger. I didn't have the help that you guys have now today. You know, I had to teach and learn and teach myself a lot of stuff, how to read, how to do all type of stuff. And I always teach her, don't let dyslexia beat you. You be dyslexia.
Yes.
So that's the only problem I'm having with her right now. She don't want to read, or she don't try to read. So I when I enrolled her in Hastings this year, I let them know that she was dyslexic. They told me that she would take some dyslexia classes. They would pull her out and let her take some classes. I'm not sure if they're doing it or not.
You definitely want to
like
reach out. If you're saying
Mhm.
you don't know, you definitely want to make sure that she's getting that intervention. Once again, they get and I'm assuming they get the same amount of intervention at the high school level that they do in
Mhm.
elementary. I can speak for elementary, they get 120 minutes per week. And they are pulled out of the classroom with the dyslexia intervention teacher or special education dyslexia teacher. So you want to make sure, like, asking the teacher, because the teacher would know if the student is being pulled out of the classroom to get that intervention, because it sounds like she really needs it. And you want her to feel comfortable with reading, and and if she's not even comfortable enough to read and text with her own mother, then that's a real problem. We want to make sure we get that help that she needs. Okay.
Right, because
I
you
would
will
also
only
encourage you to utilize there's those digital resources, the Learning Ally. The stories are read to them and the words are highlighted. And it's really does help students who struggle to read but want to engage in stories and with their imagination and creativity, but the reading independently is too much of a struggle for them. This is a way that they can support, and ALEAF offers that for all of our students. So it is available to them through the hub, Learning Ally.
Okay, because I did notice one day I went in her room, she was on her computer and I heard it reading to her. So I said, oh, they must have something new that is reading to her. But with Jacayla is like, if she hears something, she's not going to remember it 2 seconds later. She's not going to remember what she said. She can't repeat to you what you just told her or what she just read. So sometimes I kind of help her with her homework, but I be trying to teach her, like, you gotta pay attention, because I'm not gonna be at school with you if your teacher asks you this or that. But she kind of move away from it. Like she don't like me to talk about it. She don't like me to tell the teachers or anybody at the school that she's dyslexic, because she'll feel like I'm not retarded. And I try to teach her, you're not retarded. But I try to tell them what's going on with you so they can help you in a different way than they do with the other kids. But
right. And sometimes you get that when you get into older, just like I had a student last year who was in 4th grade, then he's moving on to intermediate, and his mom, when we had the end of the year meeting, and she was like, oh, he's just, he's going to intermediate school and he really don't want to be pulled out. It's just in his school. So he went over to the intermediate school, and of course the person over there who I work with her, because I know all the dyslexic teachers at most of the elementary campuses. And so when they got with it and see if there was something else they could do, because he was very on top of everything. So every student doesn't necessarily have to be pulled out of the classroom. Some students can just get accommodations for testing purposes and for academics in the classroom, but they don't necessarily have to have that pull out intervention. And as they get older, they sometimes don't feel comfortable being pulled out. But if they need to be pulled out, then we'll have to do that. But for some students, but it sounds like she might need that extra support right now. And I'm sorry, we have about 10 minutes left. So let me try to let's see, the ALEAF Proud Mom, I see you have a question?
Ma'am, I'm not sure if this relates. However, I just wanted to get a ballpark of now. My daughter, she's in 4th grade, and she doesn't necessarily have I don't know. She started reading at 3, and the problem is not reading for her. She reads well. The problem for me is more the comprehension part. She comprehends it, but it's some small things that she may miss. So is that
that might be a strategy of something just need to be done, speaking with the reading teacher, because they teach you strategies for comprehending. Like, sometimes students just read a story all the way through. They never stop. They should be visualizing as they should be creating pictures in their mind. They should metacognition, which thinking about your thinking is what metacognition is. And so they should be stopping after a paragraph, figuring out what is happening now, making predictions. All of that helps them with comprehension, because if they just read the story straight through without stopping to think about things throughout, then the comprehension, they really, when it get to the end of the story, they're not
Okay.
understanding and remembering what they read.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Okay,
Right.
and Tina, we have Tina.
Yes.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
So my child is new to A-Leaf. He used to go to Cyprus last year and year before last. He's a first grader.
Mhm.
He was in speech therapy in pre-K and kinder, but now in first grade they put him back in there. But I've noticed that when he's doing his homework, his letters are backwards. Is that some sort of form of that as well?
So it's just, he's writing his letters backwards. That's the only thing that he has. How is his phonological awareness? Like, does he understand rhyme? Does his teacher say he's struggling with any kind of the sounds, the letters and the sounds that the letters make? Do he seem really good on that?
Well, actually, he is a ADD child. He was diagnosed when he was little. So they, like I said, they have him in speech therapy, but I told him that this year I need to see if he can get a little bit more help because his speech, I think, is good.
Mhm.
But the teacher does say that he has, several issues there, apart from, not being able to focus, not being able to comprehend what the teacher's doing. He's just having all around trouble in school this year.
Did you,
Oh, go ahead.
if the speech therapy was that diagnosed, has he been in A-Leaf before?
No.
Okay, so did you get that diagnosis through a different school district?
Actually, it came from his pediatrician. So
Okay.
it started before he got to school.
Okay, so he, based on that alone, he would be a student that and he's in first grade, you said?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, based on that, the fact that he already has a speech issue and ADD or ADHD, he is a student that you would want the school to let them know that he has those diagnoses. And then the school should move forward with doing an evaluation, a full individual evaluation. It's called an FIE. And that would explore more in depth where his needs are, because he probably, that would qualify as special education support. So if he's continuing to get it, then he's already qualified for special education. If he hasn't had a full evaluation though, because that came from a doctor outside, I would request a full individual education, FIE, be done so that you can see where the academic side of that might be. And then you'll know if it's simply attention and focus issues, and the special education department can help create goals that would focus on that, or if there's a phonological need and dyslexia or a specific learning disability that would either may or may not qualify as dyslexic. And then the goals would be specific towards your son. So.
Right. Yeah, because I told him from the get-go, from when I enrolled him, about what was going on with him, and I faxed him over, gave him all the information I had. They barely came back with me and they told me, well, you know what, we're going to go ahead and keep him in speech therapy for a month or so. And then we're going to reevaluate him in November to find out where we could position him and where his needs are going to be.
Yeah, that's probably the right line of, that's probably correct. I will tell you that all the testing that's done, it's not something that happens from one day to the next. It's a process. It goes through a lot of steps and it involves a lot of people. So it takes time. And the school does have, once you request an evaluation, if he's a transfer student, then we have 30 days to observe him. And then we would have then we determine whether we need to fully reevaluate or what the needs are based on that. So it sounds like they're doing that, as from what I'm hearing. But it is important to follow that process along and pay attention to, what comes back. But they will share with you the results of that. It does take time though. I mean, it is time consuming. And we wish it wasn't, but it is important to go slow and steady. Just like our readers, our dyslexic readers have to go a little slow and steady. It's better to go slow and steady than to rush things.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So you sound like you're on the right track.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions? I don't see any other hands up. No? Well, I tell you, we hope you guys enjoyed this presentation today. We really are excited that everybody came out, and you guys, you know, it never hurts to get a little bit of information, even if your child isn't struggling and you might have a nephew or a neighbor or someone, and you know, can always pass that knowledge on to them to help them with their child. So we really, really appreciate everything. And if you have any questions, you do have a dyslexia teacher at the campus. There's one at every campus, and you are free to reach out. And if it's something other than dyslexia or a little more extreme or something, you can reach out to the special education department, and anybody there should be more than welcome to assist you. And even the classroom teacher, anytime your child is struggling academically, the first person you want to reach out to is your child's teacher, and see if they're seeing the same things that you're seeing, and see how you guys can work together and you know, do the best for the child. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, you enjoy the rest of your evening, and we appreciate everybody.